I just want to touch on an aspect that Mr Hague raised in his call around operational surpluses. And just to point out that $1 billion positive cash flow does not constitute an operational surplus. And if IFRS was fully applied to ACC, the deficit that they would have to report would be much higher. But I think we've been talking at cross purposes for the last several months around this, so I'm going to share the benefit of my many years of experience as a chartered accountant with those members across the other side of the House. And it goes like this. Deficits, bad. Big deficits, worse. $2.4 billion deficits, we're really starting to sweat. And at $4.8 billion, action has to be taken, and that's what this bill is about. Now, I want to talk about Clause 6 also, because if there's any example about the duplicitous nature of the Labour opposition, it's in relation to hearing loss. And the fact that they cry crocodile tears for the so-called claimants who are going to be denied really is quite rich. And I want to speak for myself and my own experience. Now, at about the age of 6, my hearing loss was picked up in public health screening tests, and what followed was many years of treatment, including 3 surgeries, TNA, radical mastoidectomy, and eventually a muscle graft that closed the cavity in the ear. But it left me profoundly deaf in one ear. Now, I was told by an ENT surgeon at that time that a hearing aid wouldn't help me. I can't recall the extent of the loss, but it probably, I'm sure it exceeded 5 to 6%. Now, I've had many activities that will probably have aggravated the hearing loss over the years, but if an ENT surgeon was able to attribute one bit of industrial deafness to my hearing loss, under the current law, I'm covered. All of the non-accident causes, doesn't matter. The vast majority of my deafness, which is non-accident related, would nevertheless result in me being covered by ACC. Only that's not the case, is it, Mr Chairman? And the Labour opposition know this. Under the law as it stands now, the claimant is given cover, but denied entitlement to hearing aids. The previous Labour government was prepared to tell a claimant, yes, you've got cover, but no, we're not going to give you a hearing aid. Now, how big is this problem? It's not an isolated example. Officials told... you'll learn something. Officials told the committee that currently the proportion of hearing aid claims which received cover, but where claimants were refused hearing aids, is 42%. 42% of all accepted claims currently have their hearing aids declined. So my question to the officials was, how much worse can this get? 42% now. What would happen if you were honest with claimants and set a 6% threshold? Well, the answer was really interesting. It wasn't much. The best estimate, because it's very hard for them to estimate, but the best estimate was that it would go up by about 4%. So here's the choice we have. Set an expectation for those 42% of claimants that government, under the previous legislation, cannot meet, or be honest with those claimants and tell them what's appropriate and decline the claim. Because, Mr Chairman, this debate is as much about what is not covered than what is covered. The idea of a financial constraint is just too much for the Labour opposition to handle. But this is about a scheme that isn't a backdoor through which 42,000 elective surgery patients, callously thrown off DHB waiting list by the previous government, can somehow try and get their surgery. That's the role of Vote Health, and we're seeing very, very good gains in throughput at the moment. It's not about those people who are so depressed that they would attempt to take their own lives, having cover because that's what Woodhouse said they shouldn't get. They deserve our compassion, and they deserve the best care that mental health services and Vote Health can give us. And it's certainly not about ACC being a default health provider in this country. It's not a crapshoot for hearing impaired claimants where hearing loss is primarily not due to industrial accidents. We owe those people more honesty, Mr Chairman, and for that reason, this hearing impaired New Zealander strongly supports Clause 6.